John Davidson, the 11th of April 1857 to 23 March 1909, was a Scottish poet, playwright and novelist, best known for his ballads. He also did translations from French and German. In 1909, financial difficulties, as well as physical and mental health problems, led to his suicide. Life and works. Scotland. He was born at Barhead, East Renfrewshire as the son of Alexander Davidson, an evangelical Union minister, and Helen A. Crockett of Elgin. His family removed to Greenock in 1862, where he was educated at Highlanders Academy there and entered the chemical laboratory of Walker's Sugar House Refinery in his 13th year, returning after 1 year to school as a pupil teacher in public analyst's office, 1870–71. In these employments he developed an interest in science which became an important characteristic of his poetry. In 1872 he returned for 4 years to the Highlanders Academy as a pupil teacher, and, after a year at Edinburgh University, 1876–77, received in 1877 his first scholastic employment at Alexander's Charity, Glasgow. During the next 6 years he held positions in the following schools: Perth Academy, 1878–81, Kelvinside Academy, Glasgow, 1881–82, and Hutchinson's Charity, Paisley, 1883–84. He varied his career by spending a year as clerk in a Glasgow thread firm, 1884–85, and subsequently taught in Morrison's Academy, Crieff, 1885–88, and in a private school at Greenock, 1888–89. Married 1885, London. Having taken to literature, he went in 1889 to London, where he frequented Ye Olde Cheshire Cheese and joined the Rhymers Club. Davidson's first published work was Bruce, a chronicle play in the Elizabethan manner, which appeared with a Glasgow imprint in 1886. 4 other plays: Smith, a tragic farce, 1888, an unhistorical pastoral, 1889, a romantic farce, 1889, and the brilliant pantomimic Scaramouche in Naxos, 1889, were also published while he was in Scotland. Besides writing for The Speaker, the Glasgow Herald, and other papers, he produced several novels and tales, of which the best was Befervid, 1890. But these prose works were written for a livelihood. Verse. Davidson's true medium was verse. In a Music Hall and Other Poems, 1891, suggested what Fleet Street Eclogues, 1893, proved that Davidson possessed a genuine and distinctive poetic gift. Yeats had words of praise for In a Music Hall. He called it an example of a new writer seeking out new subject matter, new emotions. Yeats wrote of his emotional dispute with Davidson in Autobiographies, 1955. The second collection established his reputation among the discerning few. His early plays were republished in 1 volume in 1894, and henceforward he turned his attention more and more completely to verse. A volume of vigorous ballads and songs, 1894, his most popular work, was followed in turn by a second series of Fleet Street Eclogues, 1896, and by New Ballads, 1897, and The Last Ballad, 1899. Dramatic works. For a time he abandoned lyric for the drama, writing several original plays, testaments. Finally Davidson engaged on a series of testaments, in which he gave definite expression to his philosophy. These volumes were entitled The Testament of a Vivisector, 1901, The Testament of a Man Forbid, 1901, The Testament of an Empire Builder, 1902, and The Testament of John Davidson, 1908. Though he disclaimed the title of philosopher, he expounded an original philosophy which was at once materialistic and aristocratic. The cosmic process, as interpreted by evolution, was for him a fruitful source of inspiration. His later verse, which is often fine rhetoric rather than poetry, expressed the belief which is summed up in the last words that he wrote. Men of the universe become conscious. The simplest man should consider himself too great to be called after any name. The corollary was that every man was to be himself to the utmost of his power, and the strongest was to rule. Davidson professed to reject all existing philosophies, including that of Nietzsche, as inadequate, but Nietzsche's influence is traceable in his argument. The poet planned ultimately to embody his revolutionary creed in a trilogy entitled God and Mammon. Only 2 plays, however, were written: The Triumph of Mammon, 1907, and Mammon and His Message, 1908. Family. In 1885 Davidson married Margaret, daughter of John MacArthur of Perth. She survived him with 2 sons, Alexander, b. 1887, and Menzies, b. 1889. Other works. Davidson was a prolific writer. Besides the works cited, he wrote many other works including The Wonderful Mission of Earl Lavender, 1895, a novel which included flagellation erotica and contributed an introduction to Shakespeare's sonnets, Renaissance edition, 1908, which, like his various prefaces and essays, shows him a subtle literary critic. Translations. He translated Montesquieu's Lettres Persanes, 1892, François Coppé's Pour le Coran in 1896 and Victor Hugo's Riblas in 1904, the former being produced as For the Crown at the Lyceum Theatre in 1896, the latter as A Queen's Romance at the Imperial Theatre. Portraits. Davidson's portrait was drawn by Walter Sickert and by Robert Brydon. A caricature by Max Beerbohm appeared in the Chapbook, 1907, and William Rothenstein did a portrait of him for the Yellow Book. In Men and Memories, 1931, Rothenstein said that when Max Beerbohm looked at his pictures of Davidson, he had complimented him on the subtle way he had handled his toupee. Rothenstein wrote that he had not noticed that he was wearing one. Frank Harris, a member of the Rhymers Club, described him in 1889 thus, quote, "A little below middle height, but strongly built with square shoulders and remarkably fine face and head. The features were almost classically regular, the eyes dark brown and large, the forehead high, the hair and moustache black. His manners were perfectly frank and natural. He met everyone in the same unaffected, kindly human way. I never saw a trace in him of snobbishness or incivility. Possibly a great man, I said to myself. Certainly a man of genius. For simplicity of manner alone is in England almost a proof of extraordinary endowment." Quote, drowning. In 1906 he was awarded a civil list pension of £100 per annum, and George Bernard Shaw did what he could to help him financially. But poverty, ill health, and his declining powers, exacerbated by the onset of cancer, caused profound hopelessness and clinical depression. Late in 1908, Davidson left London to reside at Penzance. On the 23rd of March 1909, he disappeared from his house there, under circumstances which left little doubt that he had drowned himself. Among his papers was found the manuscript of a new work, Fleet Street Poems, with a letter containing the words, "This will be my last book." His body, which was discovered by some fishermen in Mounts Bay on the 18th of September, was, in accordance with his known wishes, buried at sea. In his will he desired that no biography should be written, none of his unpublished works published, and no word except of my writing is ever to appear in any book of mine as long as the copyright endures. Quote, the assumption that he took his own life is consistent with what is known of his temperament and his ideas. In the Testament of John Davidson, published the year before his death, he anticipates this fate. None should outlive his power. Who kills himself subdues the conqueror of kings. Exempt from death is he who takes his life. My time has come. Quote, influence on other poets. Davidson's poetry was a key early influence on important modernist poets. In particular, his compatriot Hugh MacDiarmid and Wallace Stevens. T.S. Eliot was especially fond of the poem 30 Bob a Week in Ballads and Songs. 1894. Davidson's poem, In the Isle of Dogs, for example, is a clear intertext of later poems such as Eliot's The Waste Land, and Stevens' The Idea of Order at Key West. Quotes, this is an age of Bovril. Works. The North Wall. 1885. Diabolus Almonds. 1885. Verse drama. Bruce. 1886. A drama in 5 acts. Smith. 1888. A tragedy. Plays. 1889. An unhistorical pastoral. A romantic farce. Scaramouche in Naxos. Perfervid. The Career of Ninian Jameson. 1890. With 23 original illustrations by Harry Furness. Ward and Downey. Limited. London. The Great Men. And a Practical Novelist. 1891. Illustrated by E. J. Ellis. Ward and Downey. Limited. London. In a Music Hall. And Other Poems. 1891. Ward and Downey. Limited. London. Laura Riven's Widowhood. With C. J. Wheels. 1892. Fleet Street Eclogues. 1893. 3. The Night of the Maypole. 1903. Sentences and Paragraphs. 1893. Ballads and Songs. 1894. John Lane Publishes. London. 4. Baptist Lake. 1894. Ward and Downey. Limited. London. A Random Itinerary. 1894. A full and true account of the wonderful mission of Earl Lavender. 1895. St. George's Day. 1895. Fleet Street Eclogues. 2nd Series. 1896. 5. Miss Armstrong's and Other Circumstances. 1896. The Pilgrimage of Strong Sewell and Other Stories. 1896. New Ballads. 1897. Godfrida. A Play. 1898. The Last Ballad. 1899. Self's the Man. A Tragi-Comedy. 1901. The Testament of a Man Forbid. 1901. The Testament of a Vivisector. 1901. The Testament of an Empire Builder. 1902. A Rosary. 1903. Grant Richards. London. 6. The Night of the Maypole. A Comedy in 4 Acts. 1903. The Testament of a Prime Minister. 1904. 7. The Ballad of a Nun. 1905. The Theatrocrat. A Tragic Play of Church and State. 1905. Holiday and Other Poems. With a Note on Poetry. 1906. The Triumph of Mammon. 1907. E. G. Richards. London. 8. Mammon and His Message. 1908. The Testament of John Davidson. 1908. Fleet Street and Other Poems. 1909. Contributor to the Yellow Book. He translated Montesquieu's Lettres Persanes. Persian Letters. 1892. François Coppé's Pour le Couronne. For the Crown. 1896. Victor Hugo's Ruy Blas. A Queen's Romance. 1904. 9. Further reading. Hubbard, Tom. Davidson, John. 1857 to 1909. Quote, Oxford Dictionary of National Biography. Online ed. Oxford University Press. DOI 10.1093, ref. ODNB 32729. Subscription. A UK public library membership required. John Davidson. First of the Moderns. A Literary Biography. 1995. By John Sloane. Carly. Beckson. London in the 1890s. A Cultural History. 1992. Princeton University Library. John Davidson Collection. 1879–1945. Bulk 1890–1909. 10. Davidson, John. A Short Biographical Dictionary of English Literature. Wikisource. 1910. John Davidson Profile at Internet Accuracy Project. Text of Scaramouche in Naxos at La Commedia dell'arte. Works by or about John Davidson at Internet Archive. Works by John Davidson at LibriVox. Public domain audiobooks.